Have you ever wanted to customize your own Xbox One controller? Well, in this video, I'm going to show you how to take this and change it into this. What's up, guys? My name's Cooper. I'm a part owner in OC Gaming, and we make custom gaming controllers. Alright guys, let's get down to it. So the tools you're going to need is a Torx T8 security screwdriver, a Torx T6 security screwdriver, and some sort of prying tool. Alright, so first up, you're going to have to take the battery cover off. It just slips off on the back. Next step, you're going to take your prying tool, and what you're going to want to do next is get these side panels off. So the best way to do this is to hold the trigger down and to put your prying tool, just slip it down the side panel a little bit and then just pull it off. And it's going to sound like you're breaking it, but don't have to worry about it. It's not going to break. It's pretty sturdy. So you do the same thing for the other one. So make sure that when you're pulling off the side panel that you are pulling it out instead of bending it, because if you bend it, you may damage the trigger a little bit on the edge. Alright, so there are 5 screws on the back of the controller. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this one, these ones are going to be needing a Torx T8 security screwdriver. I like to start with the one behind the label here. And what I like to do is kind of use my nail to pick at the edge of the sticker. And then once I have enough for me to grab it, I can just peel it up. And while you're doing this, you want to make sure you don't peel it too far. As soon as you can see that screw hole, just stop. Because if you pull it too far, you'll pull the sticker off and it just causes problems and makes it look messy. So, alright. Alright, so the next step is to pull off the faceplate. After you undo the 5 screws, it just comes off just like that. Next step is the back shell. Just pops right off also. And put those aside. Alright, so today we're going to be changing the front shell of this controller, and we're also going to be changing these buttons. So I have a soft touch purple front shell right here, and I have gold aluminum analog sticks and gold chrome buttons. Is you're going to take off your analog sticks and they just pop right off, they just slip right in. Next step is you can use either your prying tool or one of your screwdrivers, and all you have to do is right here on the controller, you just have to slip it under and pop it up just a little bit, and then it should just come right off. And you also want to make sure that your sync button, which also just comes right out, just make sure you put that in a spot where you're not going to lose it. And then now we're going to flip it over and we're going to use our Torx T8 security screwdriver, and we're going to get into the buttons. So there's a cable right here. You just have to pop it off. Pretty easy. And now there's going to be a few screws on the back. The first 2 are right here, and I'll take those out. Alright, and next step is you pop off this front circuit board, and all you have to do is just get kind of a tight grip right in the middle here, and then it just kind of pops off. It's really easy, and you're not going to break anything here. This little piece right here, this is the 3.5mm jack. You also want to make sure you don't lose that, because it's very important. And back to the T6 screwdriver. Now we have another 6 screws on the back here. There's 2 on the bottom, and then these 4 right up top here. And so I'll take those out. So after we get through this, we'll be right at the buttons and we'll be able to change them over. Okay, so now we have our 6 T6 screws out. We can take off this circuit board and put that aside. And there's also a button pad. And just put that aside. All right, so now just dump out all the buttons, put them aside, and let's get the custom stuff in here. And so each button will have certain grooves on the back, and they'll fit in the right spot, so you don't have to worry about putting the wrong button in the wrong spot. All right, and then once we have them back in, it's time to assemble the controller. And so take the button pad and slip it right over the top. Make sure that all the buttons are touching the right points on the pad. Take your circuit board, just slip it right back in, just the way you pulled it out. That should also clip in a little bit. And now put in all the T6 screws. And make sure when you're doing this, at least while you get your first screw in, that none of the buttons pop up and look weird. Sometimes once I get maybe like 2 or 3 screws in, you can check it to make sure they all look good and they're all working properly. This saves you time in the long run rather than putting the whole controller together and then having problems. All right, so once you have your 6 T6 screws back in, now we're going to put together the rest of the controller. The important part here is your 3.5mm jack. Remember to slip that back in when you got it. There's just plastic clips there that'll hold it. And then you can put this circuit board back on top, pull the wire up, and then it should just clip right in. There's a little clip in the middle. If you press in, you'll know when it's there. Then take your black wire, line it up, and just give it a little bit of pressure on the top, and it should click right in. All right, so next up, we're going to flip it over, and we're going to change the D-pad out. And so what you're going to want to do here is use your prying tool, tilt it up a little bit, and just try and pick under this metal piece a little bit. And it should just pop right off. And then you can change it out with your customized D-pad. This clip will go right back over. Make sure you put it on the same way you pulled it off. There's 2 little holes on the top of this side. Make sure that that's on the top side. And then it just clicks right in. Now we're going to put the bumpers back on the controller. So this part can get a little tricky sometimes, but it's really not that difficult if you know what you're doing. First up, you want to take the sync button, slip it back in. Make sure that the button presses, so that way when you put it together, it can actually work. These pieces come apart from each other. I like doing one thing at a time. It just makes it a little bit easier. But you start off with the bumpers. And there's 2 little pieces right here. And these, you got to make sure you slip them through the holes and they connect with the buttons on the bumpers. And then they both work, so I can take this piece. And this part's kind of hard, but you just want to hook it over your charging jack right there. And then you just pop it in, and it just clips right in. And now we're going to take our gold aluminum analog sticks and put these on. They have kind of like an oval design on the back of them. If you just line them up, they should just click right on. Sometimes you have a little trouble with the aluminums. There we go. All right. Next up, we're going to put it back together. We're basically done at this point. So you want to flip it back over, take your original black shell, and when you do this, the important part that you remember is these 2 metal prongs right here. You want to make sure that when you're putting the shell on, they slip through the hole right here so you can see them on this side of the controller. Sometimes if you don't do it right, you'll put it over, and if you put batteries in your controller, it just won't turn on, it just won't work. So you want to make sure those are popping through. If you click the triggers down and pop it in, and then take your front shell, it should slip right over the top just like that. Alright, so now it's time to put it back together. I like to start by putting in the middle screw. This way it just kind of keeps the controller together properly and you don't have to worry about it falling apart while you're putting the other screws in. And then you just put the sticker right over the top and it still looks brand new. When you're putting in these two screws, there's an important thing that you have to do is hold down the trigger, because there's little magnetic bits in here, and sometimes you're right at the end, you're putting your controller together and a screw will get sucked in the trigger and you have to take the whole thing apart again just to get it out. So I like to hold it down, it just eliminates the problem. That way I just don't have to deal with it. Alright, so once your T8 screws are back in, just take your side panels and these will just clip right back on. Just line them up and just give them a little bit of pressure and they just clip right in. And that works for both sides. And then put in the battery pack. And here is a fully custom controller. If you found this video helpful, you can help us by leaving a like on this video. Fix-It videos aren't all we do at OC Gaming. We create videos especially for gamers, so if you're a gamer, make sure to subscribe to our channel.